The chairman then explained that the contest would measure how well everyone had trained. Aside from that, there is also a reward, but Ruto was uninterested and explained that he found it troublesome. On the other hand, Yuna thought it sounded fun and decided to participate, while Ruto just wished them luck. But as he tried to leave, Yuna firmly ordered him to cooperate and reminded him of the incident where he had touched her chest. Far from the town, Lily informed the group that they had arrived at their training site. She then explained that they would be training there for 3 months leading up to the contest. Following that, she then presented Ruto with a gift. Upon receiving it, Ruto recalled that he had torn his equipment earlier. Putting that thought aside, Lily admitted that she had nothing left to teach him and would instead focus on the other girls. Hearing this, Miu questioned whether they were really that weak, but the others encouraged her that they catch up to Ruto. Setting that aside, Lily then instructed Ruto to make beds for everyone. Hearing this, he then quietly wondered what the rest of their classmates were doing for their training. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Mita was becoming increasingly frustrated with the others because they didn't want to become stronger. However, this made the group notice how worked up he was about losing to Ruto. Enraged, Mita ordered them to shut up and declared that he was a B rank while Arakawa tried to ask him to lower his weapon. Still, Mita refused and continued to raise his sword, while claiming that he was far stronger than them. After that, he then chased after them to prove his superiority, but he was suddenly struck from behind. Confused, he turned to see that it was Tanaka who had hit him. At that moment, Mita realized his own weakness. As the others returned to their training, Mita was approached by a knight. In response, he began to speak of the high expectations he had as a B rank. Suddenly, Aura appeared and asked him if he truly wanted power. When he responded affirmatively, she grabbed him by the hair and placed a mask on him to imbue him with incredible strength. As he screamed in pain, Aura ordered him to work for her. Mita, now feeling enlightened by the surge of power, was watched closely by Arakawa, who grew concerned. Before leaving, Aura's commander questioned why she was bothering with someone like Mita. In response, she explained that Mita was the perfect tool for disposing of trash. 3 months later, Lily proudly told the girls how impressed she was with their progress after such intense training and how ready they are to compete. Even Ruto was proud, though he had spent the past 3 months just renovating the shed. Nevertheless, he invited them to help clean up the shed and head home. With that being said, Yuna expressed how much she wanted to return to Japan, and Miu added that her father must be worried about her by now. Suddenly, Hitomi noticed smoke rising nearby. Lily then wondered if there was a fire, and Ruto pointed out that it was coming from the shed. When they arrived, they found the shed slowly burning down. On the ground, they spotted a note pinned with 2 crossed swords. After Ruto read the note, he found out that it challenged him to a dungeon-busting contest, leaving him to wonder who would do such a terrible thing. As the night passed, the fire gradually died out. The next day, the group was directed to the dungeon they were about to enter. Aura then informed them that there would be a reward for the team that defeated the dungeon boss. Hearing this, the class wished the chairman luck in her attempt to defeat the demon lord. Meanwhile, Lily suddenly appeared before Ruto. So this made him ask if she had been following him, but she explained that she was simply curious to see what he could do. Still, he warned her that sneaking in might get her disqualified, but her attention was quickly drawn to the other hero candidates. Upon seeing Mita, Lily commented on the demonic nature of his powers. In turn, Mita noticed Ruto and the others. Suspicious by this, Ruto asked if the threatening letter they received the previous night was Mita's doing. But Mita's menacing expression left no doubt, and Lily couldn't help but call him creepy. Regardless, Ruto declared that he was going forward, and Yun agreed to join him. Seeing this, Lily also decided to fight alongside them. As Ruto walked toward the dungeon entrance, he wondered how Mita had obtained such dark powers, but he ultimately dismissed it and was determined to get the challenge over with. After a while, the teams were instructed to board carts. One by one, the groups climbed in, and the commander gave the signal for the carts to start moving. As they began to enter the dungeon, Yuna became overwhelmed by the bats flying around, so Ruto tried to calm her down. However, she was unexpectedly hit in the face by one, and almost caused her to fall from the cart. After a bumpy ride, the cart finally stopped, so Hitomi announced their arrival. But when she looked behind her, she was surprised to see Yuna and Ruto in a disheveled state. While Miu then suggested they keep their activities secret, but Yuna lamented that her status as a girl was going down. Moving on, Ruto quickly looked around for his hat, which Yuna handed back to him. But suddenly the chairman interrupted them and informed everyone that the real fighting would begin here. So she encouraged anyone who didn't wish to fight to step aside. After saying this, she then urged the group to move forward. Seeing enemies ahead, Tanaka encouraged the chairman to join him. and together they successfully defeated the foes. Watching from a distance, Ruto commented on how well the chairman and her group were doing, prompting Yuna to urge their group to jump in and help. But before they could move, they heard a scream for help. Turning around, they saw a girl shouting that she was about to be killed. Yuna then immediately volunteered to assist and fired her holy arrow. After her, Miu followed by using her shield bash to strike the enemy. Hitomi also began chanting and declaring that she would finish the fight with her magic. Thus, she cast Explosion, and with that, they defeated the enemy. Afterward, they rushed to check on the girl, but Yuna confirmed she didn't need any healing. Soon, other groups approached them to ask if it was Ruto's group that had fought. After confirming it, they began praising his group for their strength. But Ruto quickly clarified that it was Yuna and the others who had done all the work. Hearing this, the students speculated that their impressive skills were the result of extra effort, likely more than the rest of the class. They also asked Ruto what he had done, and he casually replied that he had been watching over them. Setting that aside, Ruto asked if anyone had seen Mita. One of the students then mentioned that Mita and Arakawa had headed to the other side of the dungeon, but he advised against pursuing them because Mita had been acting strange lately. But Ruto was already aware of Mita's odd behavior and was eager to find him, so the student just warned him to be cautious. As they made their way toward Mita's location, Ruto was shocked by the scene in front of him. While Hitomi marveled at the sight, Ruto warned the group that these enemies hadn't just been beaten, they had been expertly taken down, which indicates Mita's incredible strength. Realizing the growing danger, Ruto considered going ahead alone, but think it's more dangerous to go alone, to which the others agreed and reminding him that they were a team. Hearing this, Ruto felt moved. Meanwhile, Tanaka and the chairman ventured deeper into the dungeon. Thus, Tanaka proudly remarked on how far they had come, which earned him praise from the chairman, who called him reliable. In response, he explained that his motivation was to protect her and began to share his plans for when they returned to Japan. But before he could continue, a voice sarcastically asked if they were getting intimate already. As they turned, Tanaka was suddenly struck on the head, but they were shocked to see Mita. So they then demanded an explanation, but Mita coldly replied that it was for revenge. Despite being knocked down, Tanaka managed to get back up, prompting Mita to sarcastically praise him for being a true A rank. However, Mita swiftly kicked him again and tauntingly asked if he was still alive. Without hesitation, he kicked Tanaka once more, sending him crashing into the chairman's arms. After checking on Tanaka, the chairman realized they had to stop Mita, so she began chanting and cast Guilty Cross. With that, she successfully restrained him with her magic, and she also remarked that she doesn't want a meaningless battle between fellow heroes. Seeing this, Arakawa grew worried for Mita, but Mita merely smirked and began freeing himself from the spell, much to the chairman's shock. Mita then arrogantly stated that magic below A rank wouldn't even scratch him, hence, he began advancing toward them. Realizing the danger, Tanaka quickly urged the chairman to get behind him, so he could protect her, but Mita interprets it as a game. With that, Tanaka acknowledged Mita's overwhelming strength, so he couldn't hold back any longer. He then decided to go all out, and activated his lightning sword. The resulting explosion was massive, but when the dust settled, Tanaka noticed his sword was gone. With that, Mita revealed the missing blade to him. Alarmed, the chairman watched as Mita suddenly pierced Tanaka's arm with the stolen sword. Desperate, the chairman pleaded with Mita to stop, but he ignored her and even tore off her armor. Stunned by this, Tanaka urged the chairman to flee, but she refused to leave him behind. Feeling defeated, Tanaka asked Mita why he couldn't use his immense strength for good, especially since they were supposed to be heroes. But Mita coldly replied that he wasn't interested in concepts like good or evil, so he will fight for his own reasons. But as he raised his sword to strike the chairman, a sword stopped him and someone politely asked him to withdraw his weapon. After walking for a while, Ruto and the girls noticed the bodies scattered around and realized that Mita had likely done most of the work, making their path easier. Suddenly, Ruto spotted Lily nearby. Seeing them, she then pointed out that they had reached their destination, which made Ruto ask about the boss, but Lily revealed that Mita had already defeated it effortlessly. She also admitted that she had struggled with the same boss during her last encounter, but this left her doubting herself, after knowing that Mita had become this powerful in just 3 months. Hence, she then directed them toward the path Mita had taken and became curious about what Ruto would do next. Determined, Ruto declared that he would end things here. As they set off, Lily wished them luck. Meanwhile, a mysterious man confronted Mita, and asking if he truly was Mita. Without caring to introduce himself, the man's presence didn't faze Mita. as he decided that he would kill anyone he didn't like, including people he don't like. However, the mysterious man pointed out that Mita's real opponent was just ahead. Spotting Rudo, Mita approached him and suggested they settle things in a one-on-one fight. After Rudo agreed, Mita then instructed him to follow. But Tanaka and the chairman urgently tried to dissuade Rudo from fighting and reminded him that even A ranks like them couldn't touch Mita, so they feared that an F rank like Rudo wouldn't stand a chance. Rudo then admitted that he hated fighting too, but he wanted to end this conflict, so he called out to Mita and asked him to promise that if this ended, he would stop hurting others. Mita only smirked and replied that it would depend on whether Rudo could win. Despite their worries, Yuna and the others wished for Rudo's safe return. After reassuring them, he followed Mita to the battlefield. Watching this unfold, Arakawa expressed envy of the girls, so Hitomi then quickly told him to stop doing bad things. But Arakawa insisted that he would stand by Mita because that was the meaning of friendship. Meanwhile, the mysterious man finally sheathed his sword, so the chairman hurriedly thanked him before he left, but he simply departed without a word. Meanwhile, Mita led Rudo to a secluded area. There, he assured him that they could fight freely there. With a serious expression, Mita declared that he would be going all out. He then reached into his chest to draw his weapon, and immediately launched an attack at Rudo. Reacting swiftly, Rudo used his create skill, summoning a bow and shooting multiple arrows to intercept Mita's blades. Seeing his blades subdued, Mita remarked that there was no way Rudo was just an F rank, but Rudo did not mind it. As Mita advanced, he talked about how the chairman and the others had gone easy on Rudo, but he believed he wasn't deserving of their mercy, so he claimed that being an A rank was a lie. Despite his words, Mita continued his assault, but Rudo shattered his weapon with his bare hand and asked what Mita meant by that. Frustrated, Mita emphasized that Rudo's strength couldn't be measured by ranks and accused him of looking down on others for being a B rank. Aside from that, he also questioned if Rudo's attitude stemmed from being bullied, but Rudo calmly replied that he wasn't interested in revenge. When Rudo tried to punch him, Mita surprisingly blocked the attack and declared his intent to kill Rudo. He also added that after Rudo's death, he would take pleasure in tormenting his women. Undeterred, Rudo warned Mita to stop dreaming and used his create skill to craft the lock blade. Wielding the weapon, Rudo reminded Mita that things wouldn't go according to his plan. As Rudo charged at him, Mita quickly raised his sword, and the two clashed fiercely. After catching Mita off guard, Rudo declared that it was over. As Mita staggered, he leaned against a wall for support, but Rudo's sword was pointed at him, and Rudo even demanded that he promise not to hurt anyone again. Seemingly defeated, Mita agreed, so Rudo finally lowered his guard, but in an unexpected move, Mita suddenly grabbed Rudo. With that, he declared that Rudo had let his guard down. As he crushed Rudo's face, Rudo felt his strength draining and wondered why. So Mita explained that it wasn't just a curse of evil, but the root of evil itself, so he smugly declared that it looked like he had won today. Meanwhile, Yuna continued to check on Tanaka, who reassured her that he was okay. However, they were interrupted by a strange noise, which they quickly realized was coming from Rudo's direction. Alarmed, Yuna immediately offered to investigate, but Tanaka wanted to go with her, so Miu stopped him and suggested he rest instead. As Yuna approached the scene, she was horrified to see Rudo being brutally punched to the ground by Mita. Without hesitation, she cast Holy Arrow, but Mita noticed the incoming attack and dodged it just in time. Despite this, the girls managed to reach Rudo's side. Seeing this, Mita urged them not to get involved, but they ignored him and even planned to use recovery magic to heal Rudo's wounds. Furious by this, Mita attempted to attack Yuna, but she quickly fired another holy arrow, which caught him off guard. Enraged, Mita became even more determined to kill her. Sensing the danger, Rudo urged Yuna to retreat, but she declared that he should be the one to step back and rest. Though Rudo had lost much of his strength from the ongoing battle, he promised to protect her. However, Yuna told him that she never expected him to do it, and that she just wanted to help him. While stunned by her words, Rudo was brought back to reality when Mita declared that their playtime was over, and that it was time to end things. Sensing something was wrong, Rudo called out to Yuna. Following that, he asked her to lend him her strength by holding his hand. Annoyed by their resolve, Mita ordered them to stop playing with him, but Miu rushed in and used her ally guard to block his strike. With that, Miu assures Rudo and the others that she would protect them. Upon knowing this, Rudo quickly instructed Yuna to channel her holy power. At the same time, he used his create skill to craft a holy dagger. As he prepared, he recalled how Yuna had always supported him, even in the past, but this clearly flustered Yuna by his acknowledgement. With his holy dagger ready, Rudo then charged at Mita. While Mida was preoccupied with fighting off the others, he noticed that Ruto was coming, but he thought he was too slow, and smugly declared that the curse was still sapping his strength, so he managed to hit him, which concerned Yuna. Despite being hit, Ruto pressed on and realized that Mida's weak point lay in his corruption by evil, so he infused the holy attributes into his attack. Thus, Ruto managed to penetrate Mida's defenses, shattering his mask and leaving Mida in shock at what had just happened. With Mida's corruption lifted, Ruto declared that the evil influence was finally gone. However, Mida remained in disbelief and was writhing in agony. Later, outside the dungeon, Aura commended the group for their participation in the dungeon contest. With that, the commander presented Mida with his prize, but Yuna questioned whether he truly deserved it, and Ruto calmly reminded her that Mida did defeat the dungeon boss. Despite the victory, Mida remarked that he wanted the mask instead. But before the commander finalized the prize, he asked Mida if he had discovered the identity of the true hero, to which he answered no, and assured them that he was certain it wasn't anyone from their group. With that, Aura dismissed them and encouraged everyone to focus on eliminating the Demon King. However, Mida looked at Ruto's direction while thinking who the true hero was. The next day, Ruto and the others were discussing their plans when Lily arrived. Without delay, she handed Ruto a small bag and asked if he could use it. She then explained that it was an item box that is capable of storing things, and Yuna quickly asked if it was expensive. So Lily replied that it cost about 100 times more than their current equipment, leaving Yuna shocked. However, this made Yuna wonder if it was a gift for someone special, but Lily clarified that it wasn't. Just in time, Makish then stepped in and explained that the item box was a gift from him, causing Ruto to wonder why. Makish then explained that while Ruto and the others were gone, he sold Ruto's potato chips and made quite a profit. Moving on, Lily asked if their next plan was to defeat the Demon Lord, but Yuna admitted that they weren't sure if they were ready. In response, Lily informed them that the guild's basement had been transformed into a high-end factory, so it was time for them to return to training. Hearing this, Makish turned to Ruto and asked about his plans. Ruto then shared that he was considering becoming a shopkeeper until the Demon King was defeated. Thus, Makish suggested he gain some practical experience by working part-time, as it would help him down the line. Hearing this, Ruto agreed to check out some opportunities. Soon, he found himself at a local shop. Upon entering, he was greeted by a clerk at the anything shop. Ruto then explained he was there for the part-time job. After eyeing Ruto suspiciously, the clerk questioned if he could handle the work, so Ruto confidently replied that he could. Noticing the item box Ruto carried, the clerk immediately assumed Ruto was trustworthy and had some experience, so Ruto answered yes, but mentioned that his last venture had burned down. But that didn't deter the clerk from giving him a test by making a table set. After learning that it's a furniture set for a newlywed couple, Ruto accepted the challenge. With that, he hurriedly used his create skill to craft furniture. After a short time, the set was complete, and the clerk praised Ruto's craftsmanship. Hence, the clerk then asked Ruto to sign a contract. After Ruto signed, the clerk informed him he needed to pay 100,000 gorda for the material costs, as stated in the contract. Confused, Ruto asked how much that actually was. The clerk then explained that it was the equivalent of buying a new house. Sensing something was off, Ruto accused the clerk of scamming him and insisting there was no way the wood was that expensive. Unfazed, the clerk claimed that the wood was a rare type that took 300,000 years to grow, and since contracts were binding in the merchant world, the clerk insisted Ruto had to pay, even if it meant selling his liver. When Ruto asked him to stop, the clerk offered to overlook the debt if Ruto handed over his item box. Seeing Ruto hesitate, the clerk smugly reminded him that he could still pay if he didn't want to part with the box. Just then, they were interrupted by a voice questioning the authenticity of the mythical wood the clerk mentioned. Turning around, they saw a girl inspecting the furniture and pointing out that the wood had too few rings for something so ancient. The clerk then tried to insist that this was normal for such wood, but the girl suggested they take it to a merchant guild appraiser and to verify the claim. Stunned by this, the clerk then demanded to know who she was. In response, the girl introduced herself as Roko, a member of the merchant guild. Alarmed, the clerk quickly apologized and begged her to spare his merchant license. Hence, Roko warned him that she wouldn't be so forgiving next time. As she turned to leave, Ruto thanked her, but she remarked that he would make a terrible merchant for falling for such an obvious scam. Feeling embarrassed, Ruto explained that the shop had been recommended to him by an associate, but Roko pointed out that he was in the wrong place altogether. But realizing it was her shop, she asked if he was the one scheduled to work part-time. Upon learning this, she declared that from now on, Ruto was her younger brother. Later, while on their way, Roko suddenly realized she hadn't asked Rudo for his name, so he then introduced himself, and after hearing it, she invited him to accompany her to the port to buy some fish. She also added that it would be more fun if they had more people with them, prompting Rudo to remember the girls. Meanwhile at the guild, Lily and Yuna were engrossed in their intense training. But Yuna suddenly let out a scream, so Lily reminded her not to shout like that. However, they were interrupted by Rudo, who checked in to see if Yuna was alright. Annoyed by his sudden arrival, Lily pointed out that they were in the middle of training. So Rudo quickly explained himself and asked if he could borrow Yuna and the others for a bit, but Lily refused because they were busy training. Noticing the tension, Makish asked Rudo to explain his reasons. Rudo then leaned in and quietly told him it wasn't exactly a good idea. Curious, Makish asked if this plan would make money and Rudo replied with a tentative maybe. Hearing this, Makish encouraged him to go for it and take the others with him, much to Lily's frustration. Makish then tried to reason that Rudo was a money tree and she should trust him, which only angered her more. While Lily was distracted and questioning her father's recent behavior, Rudo and the others slipped away. Later, as Roko drove the carriage, Yuna mentioned how Lily was shaken by the contest, prompting Rudo to ask if they had really struggled with the boss that Mita had defeated. When the girls confirmed it, Roko commented that it seemed like a disaster, so she suggested they take a break once they finished their work at the port city, which made Yuna ask what kind of place it was. Roko then explained that the city called Portia was a hub for foreign trade and known for its rare goods. Hearing this, Miu excitedly mentioned wanting to spend her allowance there, but Roko also added that Portia was famous for its resorts, beaches, and seafood, which got Yuna even more eager to finish their work quickly. Upon arriving at the port, Roko called out to the boss. After he greeted her, she quickly asked to spare her 10 like usual, but the boss apologized and took out the fish he caught. Seeing this, he explained that there were only 3 fish from the fishing spot, and that's all because a shark had shown up. Frustrated by their bad luck, Roko asked if he had anything else of interest. The boss then mentioned that he only had sharks left, but Rudo noticed that it was actually a tuna. Still, the boss insisted it was a black shark, but he offered it to Rudo since he was planning to throw it away. After knowing that the boss won't eat it because it's smelly and oily, he asked him for a knife. Skeptical of this, Roko questioned whether Rudo really planned to eat the fish, and Rudo confidently replied that he would. With that, he took a bite and declared it to be delicious, so it was indeed tuna. After that, he invited Roko to try it. After agreeing, she then took a bite. However, she winced and declared it a failure because it was too rubbery and smelly, so there's no way she can sell it. However, Yuna and the other girls were eager to try it themselves. After taking a bite, Yuna confirmed that the tuna was indeed tasty, but noted that it was too oily and had a strong smell. Hearing this, Roko emphasized that it wouldn't sell unless they could get rid of the oiliness and the fishy odor. Thinking quickly, Rudo asked Roko if she had any seasonings. Roko then responded by pulling out a variety of cooking supplies from her item bag and offering Rudo access to a collection of ingredients from all over the world. Rudo then immediately grabbed a bottle and confirmed that it was soy sauce. Aside from that, Miu also announced that she had found wasabi as well. With everything prepared, they offered the newly seasoned tuna to Roko and the boss. Initially hesitant, they both took a bite and were astonished by how good it tasted. Roko then remarked that the sharpness of the wasabi had neutralized the fishy smell, while the soy sauce had enhanced the flavor. With this in mind, she immediately saw the potential for selling the dish, so she ordered the boss to give her all the black sharks he had. Later, at an eatery in Portia, the owner was surprised to see them. Nevertheless, Roko offered to pay her if she lent them her place. Once the deal was made, Roko directed everyone to start preparing the tuna. After Rudo transferred the fish inside, Roko asked Hitomi if she could use water magic. Hitomi then replied that she could manage something simple, so Roko tasked her with putting ice in the cooler box. As Hitomi and me worked on the cooler, Yuna also did her job while cleaning, while Rudo began crafting. After some time, Roko suggested they take a break and revealed that she had brought drinks, so she offered everyone a selection. With that, the girls relaxed and savored their drinks, with Miu enjoying her orange juice. However, Hitomi seemed to react oddly to hers. Suddenly, Roko asked her to take a drink to Rudo. In response, Hitomi eagerly grabbed it, which surprised everyone. As Hitomi left, Roko began to ask the others if she had done something wrong, but they assured her it was probably nothing and just a bit strange. Meanwhile, Rudo had just finished his tasks when a bottle hit him on the head. Looking down, he realized it was a juice bottle, so he then asked Hitomi if she had brought it for him. After he took a sip, He enjoyed the refreshing and fizzy drink, but he noticed something odd when Hitomi moved closer to him. Hence, he realized that she smelled faintly of alcohol, but she suddenly touched his lips and asked if it really mattered. Confused, Ruto pulled away and replied that he didn't know. Seemingly emboldened, Hitomi began to tell him that she felt confident and asked if he wanted to see her body. But suddenly, Yuna arrived and questioned what they were doing. Meanwhile, Roko and Miu were startled by the shouting coming from inside the room. Moments later, they saw Yuna walk past, without explaining what had happened. Concerned, they rushed into the room and they were shocked by the scene before them. So Roko immediately asked what was going on, but Ruto quickly explained that it was just a misunderstanding. He then explained that Hitomi was drunk, which left Roko confused. Nevertheless, Ruto urged them to help stop Hitomi. Roko then hurriedly tried to order Hitomi to stop, but Hitomi snapped at her for interfering. She even called out her attitude that doesn't match her height. After Roko found herself trapped against Hitomi's chest, she declared that Hitomi was completely out of control and asked Miu for help to get Hitomi to rest on the second floor. However, Hitomi insisted she wasn't tired, so Roko said she had some sleeping medicine they could use. Later outside, they finally found Yuna, but she still looked upset, so Roko immediately took responsibility and explained that alcohol had accidentally been included with the drinks she brought. Miu also agreed and noted that there wasn't much they could do since Hitomi was drunk. However, Yuna now wondered aloud if Hitomi also had feelings for Ruto, which surprised Miu. Nevertheless, this made Yuna worry that Ruto might like Hitomi as well. Sensing Yuna's concern, Roko suggested that she could just ask Ruto directly, since if she is too afraid to take risks, she will never move forward, and the same could apply business. The next day, Ruto was busy finalizing the setup and putting up their signage. As he came down, he was approached by Hitomi, who immediately apologized for causing him trouble the previous day. She then admitted that she couldn't remember much and wondered if she had done something terrible. Hearing that she genuinely had no memory of what happened, Ruto reassured her to just forget about it, but she was hesitant. However, their conversation was silently observed by Yuna from afar. Suddenly, Roko called Ruto over and asked him to bring out the sashimi. Using her horn to announce to the crowd, Roko declared that they had some interesting food to offer. She also added that even royalty would enjoy it, and they would regret missing this chance. Ruto then began offering samples to passersby, but a man pointed out that it was just raw fish, so he outright refused to try it. Seeing the lukewarm response, Roko approached Ruto and explained that their strategy wasn't working due to the local stigma against raw food. Hearing this, Ruto realized that selling the sashimi might be impossible in this region. However, Roko said that if people tried it, they would understand its greatness. So she then came up with a bold new tactic. Hence, she asked the girls to wear swimwear, which left them all stunned. Afterwards, the girls began offering the sashimi samples again, and they instantly caught the attention of the passersby because of their clothes. With their new presentation, Roko confidently reassured the crowd that the sashimi was delicious. Drawn in by the spectacle, the men began to discuss among themselves and eventually agreed that trying a single bite wouldn't hurt. One by one, they decided to give the samples a try. As the men sampled the sashimi, they couldn't help but rave about how delicious it was. Soon, more passersby noticed and started trying the samples. As a result, they caused lines to form in front of each of the girls. Seeing this, Roko sensed they just needed one final push, so she nudged Hitomi forward, who then announced to the customers that the sashimi would be sold inside the eatery, where they could pay for their meals. Hearing this, the men rushed toward the building and were eager to eat even if they had to borrow money. Watching the crowd rush inside, Ruto couldn't help but think that while using the girls to flaunt their looks might have been a bit sneaky, it was undeniably a success, to which Yuna agreed. But Ruto noticed that Hitomi was quite late, which confused Yuna. Hence, he pointed out that Hitomi had attracted too many admirers and admitted that she was cute. Surprised by this remark, Yuna snapped at him and told him to go help Hitomi. But her outburst caught the attention of the other girls and Ruto. Without waiting for a response, Yuna stormed off. Confused by this, Ruto turned to Miu and asked what was wrong with Yuna. Frustrated, Miu told him to figure it out himself, but when Ruto pressed her for an answer, Miu simply replied that she didn't know. Meanwhile, Yuna had wandered off to the shore and began to sigh. Suddenly, Ruto arrived, where he immediately took off his shoes and rolled up his pants to join her in the water. But Yuna began walking away from him. Noticing her frustration, Ruto asked what was bothering her, but Yuna told him to think about it himself, so he then emphasized that he did not understand. Hearing this, she then confronted him and asked why he couldn't figure it out on his own. As she approached him, she called him a troublesome guy, but she wondered aloud if he would finally understand her feelings if she took more direct action. Just as she leaned in to kiss him, a large creature suddenly appeared and devoured them both. After that, the creature swiftly carried them away and left the area behind. After some time, Yuna woke up and called out to Ruto. When he finally regained consciousness, she asked if he was okay, and he confirmed he was fine. However, their surroundings were unfamiliar, leaving them wondering where they had ended up. Suddenly, they were interrupted by the appearance of a girl who labeled them as the ones who had wounded this world, but she declared that now that she had them in her grasp, she would make sure to destroy them completely. The girl then immediately flew over to Ruto and Yuna. After that, she demanded to know about Ruto's inhuman powers. Though Ruto tried to play dumb, she wasn't buying it, and revealed the magic stone device. After that, she explained that she had sensed a powerful presence that day and used the stone to investigate. Using her familiar, she had observed Ruto's battle with Mita, and she was astounded by the strength he displayed, since that strength is something she had never seen in a human before. Thus, she then challenged him to a fight to see who was stronger. Upon hearing this, Ruto quickly declined, which confused her. He then clarified that he was just a merchant and had no interest in such things. However, she refused to let them go and launched an attack. Fortunately, Ruto and Yuna managed to dodge, but her strike was so powerful that it sliced through everything in its path. After that, she then asked Ruto if he truly believed he could escape from the Demon King, but this revelation left him baffled. Without hesitation, she introduced herself as Elizabeth, the Demon King. Following that, she then hurriedly charged at him, while Ruto then immediately sensed the immense power radiating from her. Before he could react, she opened her mouth and to his shock, she unleashed a burst of fire straight at him. But seeing this made Yuna fearing for Ruto's safety. Confident that her attack had hit its mark, Elizabeth assumed that the battle was over. But then, she noticed Ruto still moving, and she was left in disbelief. Equally surprised, Ruto realized he had somehow survived. Following that, he heard Elizabeth yell that he had taken a direct hit from her flames and was still alive. But what enraged Ruto most was that his clothes were ruined. Now furious, Ruto declared that he had enough and approached Elizabeth to punish her. After being hit on her head, she quickly felt immense pain, but she was outraged that he had dared to lay a hand on her, so she demanded to know who he thought she was. Nevertheless, she vowed to never forgive him. Following that, she then raised her hand and unleashed a blinding light. Disoriented, Ruto suddenly found himself in the grip of a giant hand. Hence, Elizabeth declared that she is now in her true form. After lifting him high into the air, she exclaimed that she would make him regret striking her. While still in shock, Ruto realized they were descending rapidly toward the ground and thought that he would die if they crashed at this speed. But to his horror, he saw they were heading straight for Yuna. So he desperately shouted for Yuna to run, but she stood frozen in fear and he realized there was no time. So he made a quick decision and freed himself from Elizabeth's grasp. After escaping her clutch, he landed on her arm and swiftly made his way to her head. Before landing his strike, Ruto apologized to Elizabeth and told her he would use his full strength. With that, his punch sent Elizabeth crashing into the ground. Still, she managed to recover quickly. However, her underlings rushed to her side and asked if she was alright. After spotting Ruto, they turned their attention to him, but Elizabeth ordered them to retreat and warned them that they would be trampled since he was far too strong. After they went silent, Yuna then called out to Ruto and asked if defeating the Demon King Elizabeth would allow them to return to their world. Hearing this, Ruto suddenly remembered that they were originally going to defeat the Demon King, but as he looked at the group, he recognized a familiar face. Seeing him, he verified that it was the ogre they had encountered before. After Yuna also recognized, the ogre said that there was something they needed to know. With that, he explained that the war had not been started by the demons, but by the humans, leaving Ruto and Yuna confused. He revealed that humans had invaded their lands, killing countless demons, not just troops or soldiers but civilians as well. So the Demon King had viewed Ruto as a potential threat, which was why she wanted to stop him. Upon hearing this, Ruto admitted that he could no longer see them as the villains, and he began to wonder if there was a way to return to their world without defeating the Demon King. Upon hearing this, Elizabeth confessed that she was impressed by Ruto's strength and compassion. Hence, she boldly asked him to give her children, much to Yuna's shock. So she firmly stated that she wouldn't allow it, which made Elizabeth ask who Yuna was. But after realizing that Yuna also had feelings for Ruto, Elizabeth suggested that she could have Ruto on even-numbered days, and Yuna could have him on the rest, but Yuna refused. Setting that aside, Ruto mentioned that they should return home to avoid worrying their friends. Hearing this, Elizabeth eagerly offered to accompany them. However, her underlings quickly pulled her back and insisted that she recover first. While Elizabeth was distracted, Ruto took the opportunity to leave, but the ogre volunteered to help them return and offered them a ride on a sea creature. As they prepared to depart, the ogre expressed hope to meet Ruto again, to which Ruto agreed. With that, they set off across the sea. A few days later, Roko was busy managing her business when she spotted someone familiar. Upon seeing her, Ruto quickly announced that they were back. Shocked by this, Roko exclaimed that she thought they had died. Shortly after, Hitomi and Miu noticed them as well and hurriedly told Yuna how worried they had been. Once the initial surprise wore off, Roko invited everyone inside to talk. Unbeknownst to them, someone had followed them. Inside, Yuna recounted their recent experiences to the girls and suggested that they needed to find an alternative method to return to Japan without defeating the Demon King. But Hitomi struggled to believe that the Demon King wasn't actually their enemy. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by a voice asking what they were eating. To their surprise, it was Elizabeth. Yuna then quickly asked why she had followed them, but Elizabeth casually replied that her goal was still the same, and it's to have Ruto's children. Frustrated by this, Yuna reminded her that she had already refused, but Elizabeth stubbornly refused. So Yuna then revealed to the others that Elizabeth was the Demon King, which prompted Miu to remind Yuna that she used to be terrified of the Demon King. Meanwhile, Ruto, who just heard the commotion, was shocked to find that Elizabeth had actually come with them. Setting that aside, she then curiously asked about what he was holding. So he then explained that it was sashimi, which made Elizabeth eagerly ask if she could try. After taking a bite, she was overjoyed by the taste. She then shared that she had tasted food from all over the world, but had never eaten anything like this before. But realizing that Ruto could cook as well, Elizabeth declared that she liked him even more. She also urged him to give her more food. However, Roko explained that it was the last piece, as there hadn't been much fishing recently due to the appearance of a violent sea monster. Seeing Elizabeth look surprised, Yuna speculated that it could be one of her underlings and asked her to do something about it. But Elizabeth clarified that she had ordered her subordinates to avoid humans for the time being, and guessed that the monster causing trouble was likely the Leviathan. Seeing Ruto confused, Elizabeth explained that Leviathan was a destructive sea monster disliked by everyone because of its tendency to wreak havoc, but she is determined for the sake of sushi, so she declared she would take care of Leviathan. However, Roko expressed doubt, prompting Elizabeth to remind her that she was the Demon King. Taking her at her word, Roko formally submitted a subjugation request for Leviathan. Later at the port, Roko shared that she had wanted to use a boat from the Merchant Guild, but with the rumors about Leviathan, they were unwilling to risk losing it. Left with no other choice, she had to borrow a ship from a less reputable source and pointed them to that person. To everyone's surprise, that person turned out to be Makish. Ruto then greeted him immediately, but Makish quickly declared that this was going to be a profitable venture. Following that, Makish then proudly showed off the ship, which he had named the HMS Infinite Potato Chips. While Ruto marveled at the ship, he also noticed how Makish skillfully negotiated with Roko and showed his true merchant nature. Soon, the ship set sail. As they sailed, Yuna commented on how fast the ship was moving. Suddenly, Ruto began preparing supplies and asked Hitomi to use lightning magic. Intrigued, Elizabeth asked what he was planning. So Ruto explained that he was preparing lightning-infused rounds for their upcoming battle with Leviathan. Elizabeth then boasted that she could infuse the rounds with fire magic, but Ruto doubted fire would be effective against a sea monster. Thus, Yuna poked fun at Elizabeth's overwhelming yet seemingly useless strength. Annoyed, Elizabeth ordered Yuna to stay out of her and Ruto's conversation, but Yuna refused. Seeing their banter, Hitomi commented that they seemed to get along. Suddenly, Miu suddenly alerted everyone that a strange ship was heading toward them. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was Captain GG pirate ship. Immediately, the crew prepared for battle, with Makish ordering the cannons to be manned and ready to fire at will. However, after firing their second volley, they noticed that the enemy's ship was unscathed and speeding toward them. Makish then thought of retreating, but after seeing they couldn't outrun it, he ordered everyone to brace for impact. Soon, the pirate ship rammed into their vessel, and the pirates began boarding. Sailors then readied themselves for a fight, but Yuna was confused by the chaos. Observing the situation, Elizabeth noted that some of them weren't human and decided to help. Ruto then tried to stop her, but she assured him she wouldn't kill anyone. Elizabeth faced the pirates. She effortlessly flipped them off the ship with just her fingers and sent them flying into the sea. Seeing this, both Ruto's crew and the pirates were left in awe of her immense strength. Suddenly, Captain GG himself appeared and scolded his crew for making him get involved. Nevertheless, he proceeded to go to the other ship and landed in front of Elizabeth. With that, he declared his intent to challenge Elizabeth to a one-on-one duel, and declared that she'll go against his godless gun ballet. He also boasted that not even a demon king could survive it. Amused, Elizabeth accepted the challenge. However, before Captain GG could finish his words, Elizabeth sent him flying with a single blow. As a result, he was launched into the sea. Seeing this, his crew hurried to check on him. But as he resurfaced, GG glanced at Rudo and declared the battle fierce, despite having clearly been defeated. Nevertheless, he admitted his loss and vowed revenge. As GG pirate ship sailed away, everyone praised Elizabeth for her incredible strength. Moreover, they thought she was amazing that she had single-handedly defeated Captain GG. Hearing this, she then demanded a reward, so she quickly approached Rudo, but he immediately cut her off by saying that there's no children for her. Unfazed, Elizabeth asked him to pat her head instead. In response, Rudo complied and patted her head. After that, she felt overjoyed and declared that Rudo's head pats were priceless. Hence, she then teased Yuna by asking if she was jealous. As they argue, they were interrupted by Hitomi, who called their attention to the pirate ship. Upon looking at it, they witnessed it being destroyed before their eyes. Recognizing the powerful attack, Elizabeth identified the culprit as Leviathan. Upon seeing Leviathan emerge from the sea, Rudo asked Elizabeth if she could distract the creature, as he didn't want the pirates to die before they could rescue them. Hearing that he still wished to save his enemies, Elizabeth remarked on his kindness and agreed to help. Thus, Rudo reminded her that he was counting on her. Meanwhile, the pirates noticed a rescue boat approaching, but they also saw Leviathan heading their way. As the sea monster attacked, they thought their end was near, but Elizabeth intercepted the blow and blocked it. She then urged them to escape quickly, which made the pirates thank her. After that, they were rescued and brought back to Makish's ship. So Rudo then thanked Makish, but Makish casually brushed it off by saying that he planned to have the pirates work for him in exchange for a fair wage. Now with the pirates aboard, Rudo instructed them to take a head count. After calling out names, they confirmed that everyone was accounted for, which Mew considered a miracle. However, one pirate suddenly realized that someone was missing. Meanwhile, Elizabeth continued distracting Leviathan, but she realized that the battle wasn't progressing, so she decided to end it with one powerful strike. As she prepared her divine annihilation attack, she paused when she noticed someone on Leviathan's head. Hence, she found out it was Captain GG. Despite the danger, GG urged her to strike while he held the monster back. But Elizabeth pointed out that GG was merely riding Leviathan and would perish along with the beast if she attacked. Still, GG declared he was ready to sacrifice himself for the sake of his crew. Hearing this, Elizabeth returned to Rudo and informed him that she couldn't attack because GG was on Leviathan's head. Upon hearing this, Rudo and the others were stunned by the news. But one of the pirates approached Rudo, and though it felt ungrateful, he begged him to save GG. Following that, he then explains that GG had once saved them all from a life of misery. With no other option, Rudo agreed. Suddenly, they were warned that Leviathan was heading straight toward them. The monster then unleashed a powerful water breath in their direction. So Mew quickly stepped up to protect everyone and cast Ally Guard to block the attack. But the force shattered her shield. Reacting swiftly, Hitomi cast Frost and froze the water in midair, which caused it to crash harmlessly into the sea. However, the impact left Mew hanging precariously and was about to fall. Just in time, Elizabeth swooped in and told her to stick to battles within her size range. Despite that, Mew gratefully thanked her, while Elizabeth then sighed in response. After ensuring Mew's safety, they were approached by Hitomi, who asked if everyone was okay. But Elizabeth suddenly approached her and took her away. After that, she then asked Hitomi's cooperation in nullifying the next attack. Seeing Hitomi was still hesitant, Elizabeth firmly urged her to focus and asked if she truly wanted to protect everyone. After confirming this, Elizabeth then informed her that the attack is coming. With determination, Hitomi cast Frost and successfully froze the water in place. Seeing this, Rudo realized he could now reach Leviathan by leaping across the floating ice. With this in mind, Yuna then quickly mentioned that she had the perfect skill for a situation like this. Thus, she cast Haste on Rudo to speed him up. Surprised by this, he asked where she had learned the skill. So Yuna then proudly explained that Lily had taught it to her after the contest, which made Rudo complimented her on mastering such a useful skill. After that, Rudo began jumping across the ice chunks and making his way toward Leviathan. Once he spotted GG, he leaped over and grabbed him. After that, he told GG that they needed to get out of there, but GG was still confused. Suddenly, Rudo hurled him toward their ship, But just as Rudo ensured Gigi's safety, Leviathan appeared from behind and devoured Rudo. Trapped inside Leviathan's mouth, Rudo struggled to keep it from closing. After he managed to escape, he was suddenly hit by a powerful water attack that sent him plunging deeper into the sea. But Leviathan didn't relent, and launched another water blast at him. Though Rudo wasn't injured, he couldn't hold out much longer. Just when it seemed hopeless, the attack suddenly stopped. Looking up, Rudo saw Elizabeth restraining Leviathan, with Hitomi clinging to her tail. So Rudo then seized the moment. Empowered by the haste spell and his abilities, he prepared for a final strike. As Elizabeth lifted Leviathan from the water, Rudo jumped higher and wielded his dagger. With precision, he drove the blade into Leviathan's head, causing the monster to roar in pain. Hence, Leviathan's defeat was swift and Rudo landed back safely. But Elizabeth noticed something falling from the sky, so she swiftly flew towards it. As Rudo came back to the ship, Yuna rushed over to praise him for his bravery, but he was feeling drained from the battle. Thus, he then turned to Elizabeth and complained that she could have at least helped him out. In response, she reasoned that her attention was focused on something unexpected. Curious, Rudo followed her gaze and couldn't help but wonder who the girl in front of them was.